Good afternoon. Welcome to Mr. Bennett's History Minute, or History Minutes. I've not decided what I'm going to call all this stuff yet. So, just finished up a day of remote teaching and got to thinking, you know what? Let's go ahead and start this little video series here. So, here I am in my classroom at my desk. Desk has been slid back for the beginning of the end of the semester. But anyhow, still got enough room to sit down at it for right now. And I was looking on my bookshelf and I found a wonderful source of sources full of just really good primary sources from early America. This is volume 1 of Voices of America, Past and Present. Full of great stuff going from the colonial period, the Age of Exploration, even before that, all the way through to the Civil War era. Excellent. And as I was looking through this, I'm a Revolutionary War nut, really 18th century. It's not all about war. There's a lot of good things that happened in the peace. Anyway, so because of that, I was looking through this and I found the address to the inhabitants of Anson County, or the address of the inhabitants of Anson County to Governor Martin, the last royal governor of North Carolina, Josiah Martin. So, this is from 1774. It was preserved in the Colonial Records of North Carolina, in Volume 9, 1771 to 1775, edited by William I. Saunders, at Raleigh in 1890. So, seems legitimate. Citation right down there, somewhere down here. Anyways, here's how it. Here's why this is so interesting to me. Here I sit not 5 miles away from the site of the Battle of Colson's Ordinary, sometimes also called Colson's Mill, or the fight at Colson's. I think his name was William Colson, but I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, this guy named Colson in the 1770s had an ordinary, or a tavern, mill, everything in kind of place all rolled into one. He's a businessman, and it's down on the forks of the PD River, where the PD and the Rocky meet together. Well, 1770 or 1781, I think it was, maybe in 80. It's either 80 or 81. Summer of that year, there's going to be a fight down there between local Tories and the local Whigs, which not really the local Whigs. The Whigs are going to come from as far up north as Rowan County, modern day, well, Rowan at that time is going to be Davidson, Davie, a little bit of what would later get, well, yeah, I think Rowan and Surrey exchanged a little bit of land then. But anyway, Rowan in 1774 is modern day counties of Rowan, Iredell, Davie, Davidson, let's see, parts of maybe a little bit of Catawba County, but not much. Anyway, so when we say Rowan, it's not just Whigs from Salisbury or that area. Anyway, all those guys had to come down here because Colonel Bryan, I think Morgan Bryan perhaps is the name. Anyway, he had a bunch of Tories here, a bunch of Loyalists. That's why we've got the loyal British red ensign behind us here, the flag of His Majesty's troops in earlier 18th century conflicts in America, the King's Standard, as we would probably have referred to it had we been in this area then. I don't know if the Tories had one, if they carried one, but it's nice to have in the video. Anyway, so in 1774, long before the Revolutionary War starts, long before the Battle of Colson's Mill, people in this area at this time, Stanly County, where I am right now, was part of Anson. It wouldn't become Stanly till 1841, and even before that, it was Montgomery County. And it didn't become Montgomery County till 1779. They were able to, when people really in what's really Montgomery County to the east of us here, they're going to break away from Anson, probably because of anti-royalist sentiment, and they named the new county after an American general who died, I think, at Bunker Hill, Richard Montgomery. He died in whatever. I could look it up, and we'll look that up another time. It's hard to remember all these things off the top of my head. Anyway, down in Anson, years before that, when Anson was a whole bunch of stuff, the inhabitants there, 227 of them, are going to get together and say, we need to petition the governor about something. Many Americans are remaining loyal to England before, during, and after the Revolutionary War. Loyalists are particularly strong where the government was stable and where colonists relied on the British for protection. So they're going to be really stable in New York. The British will hold New York for a pretty good while. Washington will really set his sights on it. It'll be a while. It'll be pretty much the whole war. After they lose New York, the Whigs don't really gain it back. The Patriots and Whigs are interchangeable. Anyway, down here on the Carolina frontier, decent amount of loyalists, at least early on, especially early on. Anyway, so in Anson County, they pledge their loyalty and ask in part for protection, these colonial loyalists from Anson County do, to their governor. And this is the last British governor of North Carolina, Josiah Martin. It says, to His Excellency, Josiah Martin, Esquire, Captain General and Governor, etc. Most excellent Governor, permit us, in behalf of ourselves and many others of His Majesty's most dutiful and loyal subjects within the county of Anson, to take the earliest opportunity of addressing Your Excellency and expressing our abomination of the many outrageous attempts now forming on this side of the Atlantic, with a K, Atlantic, against the peace and tranquility His Majesty's dominions in North America. I guess it should be of, but they left out the of there. And to witness to Your Excellency by this our protest a disapprobation, and abhorrence of the many lawless combinations and unwarrantable practices actually carrying on by a gross tribe of infatuated anti-monarchists in the several colonies in these dominions. The baneful consequence of whose audacious contrivance can, in fine, only tend to extirpate the fundamental principles of all government and illegally to shake off their obedience to and dependence upon the imperial crown and parliament of Great Britain, the infection of whose pernicious example being already extended to this particular county, of which we now bear the fullest testimony. It is with the deepest concern, though with infinite indignation, that we see in all public places and papers disagreeable votes, speeches, and resolutions said to be entered into by our sister colonies in the highest contempt and derogation of the superintending power of the legislative authority of Great Britain. And we further, with sorrow, behold their wanton endeavors to vilify and arraign the honor and integrity of His Majesty's most honorable ministry and council, tending to sow the seed of discord and sedition in open violation of their duty and allegiance. We are truly invigorated with the warmest zeal and attachment in favor of the British Parliament, Constitution, and laws, which our forefathers gloriously struggled to establish, and which are now become the noblest birthright and inheritance of all Britannia's sons. We are truly sensible that those invaluable blessings which we have hereto enjoyed under His Majesty's auspicious government can only be secured to us by the stability of His throne, supported and defended by the British Parliament, the only grand bulwark and guardian of our civil and religious liberties. Duty and affection oblige us further to express our grateful acknowledgments for the inestimate blessings flowing from such a constitution. And we do assure Your Excellency that we are determined, by the assistance of Almighty God, in our respective stations, steadfastly to continue His Majesty's loyal subjects and to contribute all in our power for the preservation of the public peace, so that, by our unanimous example, we hope to discourage the desperate endeavors of a deluded multitude and to see a misled people turn again from their atrocious offenses to proper exercise of their obedience and duty. And we do furthermore assure Your Excellency that we shall endeavor to cultivate such sentiments in all those under our care, and to warm their breasts with a true zeal for His Majesty and affection for His illustrious family. And may the Almighty God be pleased to direct His councils, His parliament, and all those in authority under Him, that their endeavors may be for the advancement of piety, and the safety, honor, and welfare of our sovereign and His kingdoms, that the malice of his enemies may be assuaged, and their evil designs confounded and defeated, so that all the world may be convinced that his sacred person, his royal family, his parliament, and our country are the special objects of divine dispensation and providence. Signed by 227 of the inhabitants of Anson County. Then it gives us this good little document analysis question of how do those who signed this letter regard the colonial critics of the British Empire in the 1770s? They say these Whigs are crazy. They're deluded. They're infatuated, anti-monarchists. They're going against the king. They're breaking the laws. They're going against all this great stuff that Britain has provided. And that's a thing that we often leave out in the American story in talking about things like the American Revolution. Like here, for example, that's what was holding my computer up. David McCulloch's 1776. It's a really good book. Great. It's awesome. Tells a really good story. It does mention the Tories. It talks about some things from the British side, but it's very, very, very pro-independence. Which, why not? I mean, we wouldn't have the United States if it hadn't been for that. But it's something we need to consider, that not all Americans were gung-ho for independence. That here, especially on the frontier, you had a lot of back and forth. I mean, some of the guys who went down to Colson's mill and fought against the Tories probably had these similar sentiments of attachment to the British government a few years before. Now, today's May 20th, Meck Dec Day. I put that in quotations because we really don't know. We don't know if there's not good enough. We don't know if the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence is a real thing. We put it on our state flag. Matches up nicely with the date that we chose to secede from the Union as a state in 1861 in North Carolina. Something happened on May 20th, but something happened everywhere, every day. The Mecklenburg Resolves, we do know about those. We have very good documentation that on May 31st, 1775, the Resolves was signed in Mecklenburg County, just to the west of Anson, across what's now Union County, which was part of Anson at the time, or part Anson, part Mecklenburg. Hence Union when they took two pieces and put them together. But anyway, over in Mecklenburg, something was going on in late May 1775. But a year before, 1774, I don't have a date other than the year on this. I can assume this is probably sometime mid-year, possibly around September, when the Continental Congress was sending stuff over to the British. I think that's when that was going on. First Continental Congress sent their petitions. Anyhow, it's just important for us to consider sometimes as historians of American history, especially of studying the Revolutionary War period, that just about as many guys early on, especially, were on the British side in terms of supporting, what was going on with the government, as on the American side. A lot of historians say that, you had things split about three ways, and almost evenly three ways. You had Whigs, Loyalists, and people in the middle. And those people in the middle, by the end of the war, they're either on one side or the other. Many of them remain neutral. But it's important to consider that in the 18th century, if you got captured, you could be paroled, basically slapped on the wrist and said, hey, don't fight against the king or don't fight against the Congress anymore, and you can go home. Leave your gun, leave your horse, but you can go home. Well, if you believe in it good enough in your cause, you just go sign up again sometime. Break your parole. But it didn't always happen. Usually they stuck to those kind of things, I think. Anyhow, just wanted to point out today that not everybody in this part of North Carolina was fervently for independence in the mid-1770s. 1774, we got these Ansonians who surprisingly back then could really, really, they really, really talk well. Better than me. I'm sitting here saying really, really. But anyhow, these Ansonians are going to lay out plainly why they believe that they should stay a part of the British Empire. They think that George isn't that bad, and the things that Parliament have done, we have no reason to rebel this fervently against this. Things to consider, something to take into account. Most of the guys who wrote that and signed it probably lost their property, got tarred and feathered, hanged, run out of the state. Horrible things happened to their family and things of that nature. Backcountry, North Carolina in the Revolutionary War was a pretty rough place. But those guys were brave. They stood up for what they thought, and we should equate things like that, or at least consider equating things where we're supporting staying with Britain. We should take into account that their zeal for that is really just as admirable as the zeal of the founding fathers, the guys who wanted to break away and create something new, a new country. We have to take into account their motives were not always pure. George Washington wasn't really all that big a fan of common people. Alexander Hamilton, staunch Federalist after the war, and as we're setting up the new government. Jefferson, still not really he's not a common person. As you can see in a lot of his writings, there's a lot of contradiction. So we have to consider those things when discussing the Revolutionary War and really what it was like for the common folks. So this has been Mr. Bennett's History Minutes. Thank you for watching. Thanks for listening, and have a good one.